2 years, she's flooded her platform with one-size children, and when it comes to Israeli children, she offers crumbs. If that isn't humanitarian, it's selective empathy.
If you're going to be a children's entertainer, you shouldn't have somebody on your show who glorifies the murder of 38 Israeli children.
Miss Rachel is an American, God bless her.
Jewish parents are really afraid because they're showing their kids how to write the letter M, and on the side they're getting a video with Muatas Aziza who celebrates Hamas. That's very concerning.
It's very hard to not conclude that you were anti-Semitic.
It's reaction to the genocide. You couldn't bear it anymore.
No, it's just cold-blooded murder. That's what it is.
I agree, it's murder.
Okay, obviously. So then he's a terrorist then, right?
No, he's not a terrorist.
What is he? He's a murderer.
Reacting to the genocide. Yeah, sure, he's a murderer.
It's that special time of year again. Nominees are making their case and rehearsing their speeches. Everyone's having their say on who should get the top prize. Antisemite of the Year began 6 years ago as what seemed to be a well-meaning campaign to highlight prominent people who had done or said things which were anti-Semitic. But I'm not alone in noticing that the entry criteria fixed by the Stop Antisemitism advocacy group has expanded to pretty much anyone who criticises the Israeli government. This year's shortlist includes a couple of people who have peddled genuine anti-Semitic tropes, and a lot of people, including Cenk Uygur, Ana Kasparian, and Tucker Carlson, who, to my knowledge, have not. But there's one name getting all the award season buzz this year.
Dinosaur eggs! Days of the week, days of the week. Yeah! Can you help me teach them to stop? What a special day! We're so smart! Let's pretend that while we're having fun with bubbles, Bean starts to pee. Bean, you're peeing on the floor. Pee goes in the potty. Let's walk to the potty.
Yes, it's Miss Rachel, the massively popular children's YouTuber who teaches toddlers, amongst many other things, how to use the potty. Critics say she belongs on the list because she's used her enormous platform to advance Hamas propaganda. She posted this video featuring one of her most popular songs to highlight a 3-year-old Gazan refugee who lost her legs in an Israeli airstrike.
Wake up, little bunnies! Skip, little bunny, skip, skip, skip. Skip, little bunny, skip, skip, skip. Skip, little bunny, skip, skip, skip. Skip, 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 then stop.
Glenn Greenwald, who is Jewish, posted yesterday, most people now see that anti-Semitism has no operational meaning beyond one who criticises Israel. But having Miss Rachel win will make that clearer, even for the few who don't yet see it. Her crime is speaking sympathetically of Gazan children. Vote Miss Rachel. Well, does he have a point? Joining me to debate this, a 2025 Anti-Semite of the Year nominee, alongside Miss Rachel, Ana Kasparian, who's also the executive producer and host at The Young Turks, Jake Donnelly, aka the Red, White and Blue Jew, Hen Mazzig, Israeli influencer and author. So welcome to all of you. All right, let's start with you, Ana Kasparian. You're on the list. You've been nominated. How do you feel about that?
I feel fine about it because obviously the list is not one that actually contains real anti-Semites. It's a list that contains individuals who are sometimes very aggressively critical of a foreign country's government, and that would be the country that's currently engaging in multiple wars in an effort to annex more land and territory that doesn't belong to them. And of course, that's Israel. And if anyone's under the impression that putting me on lists is going to dissuade me from speaking the truth about what's going on in the Middle East, they'd sadly be mistaken. And I know a little information about the grotesque woman behind Stop Antisemitism, which we can talk about a little bit if you'd like. But I feel fine about being included in that list. And Miss Rachel is a national treasure.
Well, let's come to the case against her before I go to my other panelists. The Stop Antisemitism citation for Miss Rachel's nomination states since earlier this year, Miss Rachel has published Hamas propaganda to millions, sharing debunked images, inflated casualty claims, and almost entirely ignoring Israeli child victims. My point to you, Jake Donnelly, she's entitled, if she wants, to give more attention to kids in Gaza than Israeli kids. If she completely ignored what has happened to Israeli children, that's one thing. But if she's acknowledged it, but chosen to give more of her time to Gazan children, that doesn't make her anti-Semitic.
No, it doesn't. And first up, Piers, thank you so much for having me on. I really do appreciate the opportunity to speak about this. What makes her anti-Semitic is her relationship with Motez Azaza. Because if you're going to be a children's entertainer, you shouldn't have somebody on your show who glorifies the murder of 38 Israeli children. That doesn't make any sense to me. And any parent that puts their child in front of somebody like that so that she can push her propaganda, use fake AI imagery in order to do so, and to continue to just publish everywhere the Hamas-run numbers, 14,000 imminent starving children. I've yet to see where any of those are. Yeah, that is what makes you an anti-Semite. So it's not necessarily the one-sided stuff that she does, but when you go and you talk about all of the children, well, okay, why don't you talk about the 12 children that were murdered by Hezbollah? The Druze children who are simply playing soccer. She says that she cares about all of the children, but I don't see that. In fact, I see what she's doing as a political game, and I'd rather call this stuff out in 1933 than call it out in November 1938. And that's what I'm seeing. And that's what
and also to be clear then, all right, but to be clear, if that is your criteria, is that she shows selective empathy, and we'll come to the issue of Motaz Azaza in a moment, but if that's your criteria, should we then apply the same criteria to any pro-Israeli commentator on social media or on the airways, wherever it may be, who has shown selective empathy towards the plight of Israeli children, but never addressed the plight of Palestinian children? Are they Islamophobic?
I think well, those were two different questions. So for somebody like me, let's just take my case. You will see on my actual X page that I am constantly republishing, reposting, and commenting on the Center for Peace Communications, which are the people who are pushing the Palestinians that are against both Hamas as well as the Palestinian Authority. So when it comes to people who are acting entirely one-sided, I don't want any of that. We have Ana here, and actually, from my opinion, Ana's not the worst of the worst by any stretch of the imagination.
But do you believe she's anti-Semitic?
No, I do not. I do not believe that Ana is anti-Semitic. Okay. I think that she can sometimes be easily manipulated and push the same Hamas-run Ministry of Health numbers.
And out of interest, Jay.
Let's talk about data.
I'll let you respond.
Let's talk about data. No. I get to respond to that. Let's talk about data from the IDF, the IDF's internal data. I don't read American media on what's happening in the Middle East. I actually like to read Israeli media because they're super honest, and I really appreciate their honesty. So Israeli papers got a hold of the IDF's internal data in regard to civilian casualties in Gaza. And their own data indicates 83% of people slaughtered in Gaza, 83% are civilians. Israel, the IDF, just shot and killed. Stop, don't interrupt me. IDF just shot and killed an 8-year-old and an 11-year-old in Gaza, claiming that they had crossed the yellow line when no such thing happened. And they tried to make it seem as though an 8-year-old and an 11-year-old are literal militants deserving of the type of slaughter they were met with. Okay, listen, I am not going to sit here and just stomach the ridiculous propaganda and lies that keeps getting regurgitated over and over and over again. You guys have to find better talking points. You really do, because these have been debunked over and over again on this show, and they will continue to be debunked on this show, on my show. Americans aren't stupid. They see what's happening. The evidence is abundantly clear. What's amazing to me is the dehumanization of every human life that isn't Israeli or isn't in favor of what that disgusting genocidal government is up to.
Okay, look, we've had some tech issues, Jake, with your signal, so we're trying to fix that. Let me go to Hen Mazzig.
Divine intervention must be.
Well, Hen Mazzig, you've been listening to this. What is your response to what Ana just said?
Yeah, it's rich to speak about dehumanization from a person that said that all Israelis should be ashamed of themselves, that we are demons, that the Jewish lobby controls the U.S., that Israel is a Nazi state.
The Jewish lobby does control the U.S.
Okay, all right. So
where's
just
the lie?
Prove my point, thanks. The problem is that you are not able to look in the mirror and see who you are and what you're doing to the Jewish community.
Oh, I look in the mirror
once
every
the Jewish
day,
community is calling you out for the way you are harming us, instead of listening and trying to change your ways, you're doubling down. And as long as you're going to do that, yes, we are going to continue calling you what you are and saying that what you're doing is really harming our community.
So
what's disgusting here, Ana, is that you are unable to hear to a minority community telling you that your words have contributed to an atmosphere that gets our people killed outside of our synagogues because of your words, because of statements that you said that others like you have said.
They weren't included on the anti-Semite list, by the way. The guy who killed 2 Israeli embassy workers, this year, okay, the actual anti-Semite who murdered people, didn't make it on the list.
Right.
Fascinating.
So Hen, do you think
that
that Anna is anti-Semitic?
I think that her words are deeply anti-Semitic. I think she has contributed to an atmosphere that gets our people killed, and I think it's totally legitimate to call this out. And if a minority community is telling you this, you should listen to us. And yes, maybe this person that...
But hang on. So let me just stop you there, because I've been branded anti-Semitic, okay, by a lot of people on social media.
And I've defended you, Piers.
Right, because I deeply resent it. Right. Because as everybody remembers, who watches this show, for many, many, many long months after the October the 7th attacks, I vigorously and loudly defended Israel's right to defend itself. This year, from the start of this year onwards, I began to be more and more critical of the Israeli government. Not of the Israeli people, not of Israel. I wasn't denying its existence. I wasn't attacking Jewish people or Israeli people. Specifically, the government, Benjamin Netanyahu, and also specifically the right-wing headbangers in that government like Smotrich and Ben-Gvir. And for my troubles, despite painstakingly making it clear who was the object of my criticism, I was regularly branded anti-Semitic. So I do believe it's something that's been thrown around way too much. It's done in a deliberate, concerted effort to shut people up from criticizing anything that Israel's doing. So yes, there is genuine anti-Semitism, no question. I think it's been rising in the last 2-3 years, which is appalling. But throwing it around to silence people, and I'm not accusing you, Hen, I'm just saying this is what I've been on the receiving end, is it's just been used as a stick to censor people and to shut them up. And I think that's abhorrent.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I'm not saying that, yes, some people use anti-Semitism too widely and in a wide brush that they shouldn't have to do it. And I think it's true for every minority community. As a gay person, I see how people use the term homophobic quite casually to say anyone that has any criticism of LGBTQ people is homophobic. I understand that it's not like that. And it's the same with anti-Semitism. But that doesn't take away from the severity of people making statements that end up, as Anna mentioned, the same statements that we hear from them are the ones that are being used to shoot Jews outside of our Holocaust Museum in D.C.
And what about Miss Rachel? Do you think she's anti-Semitic?
I don't think she's anti-Semitic, but I think she's really misguided. And I think the fact that when she hosted Moatez Aziza that celebrated Hamas on her platform, and then when Jews called her out, she said trying to defend starving children is not anti-Semitism. It played directly into a medieval blood libel that says that Jews are trying to kill children, and we use anti-Semitism to stop her from trying to stop us. We're not silencing her. We're calling her out. We're calling her in, rather. And if she just listened to us and have this conversation, if Anna just listened to us and have a conversation instead of screaming every time she hears Jewish person criticize her, I'm sure that next year she wouldn't be on the list.
Well, let me read Miss Rachel's response on Instagram to this nomination. She said, "I'm so thankful to Jewish organizations, rabbis, friends, colleagues, and family for standing by me. I'm against anti-Semitism and all forms of hate and racism. I'm incredibly proud of my work to help Palestinian children. With 20,000 Palestinian children killed, most child amputees in modern history, homes, schools, hospitals bombed, 17,000 orphans, everyone should be speaking out." She also went on CNN's Amanpour show and told Christian Amanpour some more of her thoughts about this. This was 2 months ago. Let's take a look.
What was it that made you step out and support these children in Gaza?
How could I not, seeing what was happening on our screens, hearing from Save the Children who had firsthand accounts, knowing that so many children were losing their lives. It's up to over 18,000 children. So as an early childhood educator, I know what children need. They need food. It's being blocked. They need water. It's being blocked. They need to be in school. Their schools have been bombed. They need medical care. I know what children need to thrive, and I know what holds them back. And it was very clear to me, along with so many others in our country and around the world, that it's so critical to speak up.
And she also addressed the criticism she'd faced. This was before this, obviously, this new nomination came out.
Were you ever worried? Because even before you spoke up, it was a hornet's nest of controversy. The idea of speaking up for, let's face it, Palestinian children after October 7th.
I'm not an expert in that area, but I knew that I'm an expert in child development. I have 2 masters in education. I've worked with children my whole life for 20 years. Seeing the images of the children, there was no question that it was the right thing to say something.
Okay, so Jake, when you hear what she says there and you read her statement, she's very keen to stress she's not anti-Semitic. She doesn't hate Jewish people. So why would she be targeted in this way?
Well, we've already discussed it. When you are a children entertainer and you bring somebody on who glorifies a day in which 38 children were murdered, well, we're going to have some questions as to.
But I've had people, but my response to that is I've had many guests on here on the pro-Palestinian side, not who've glorified October the 7th, but certainly who've refused to condemn it. So does that make me anti-Semitic for giving them a platform?
No, you're a journalist, you're not a children's entertainer, although sometimes it can get pretty childish on this show. But that's not the case here. And if we're talking about anti-Semitism and what actually constitutes anti-Semitism, we already have something on this show where Ana says that 83%, that's just those who were identified. That is a misleading statistic. And either Ana, you know
no, it's not.
How to read
83% of those slaughtered in Gaza were identified as civilians by the
were
IDF.
Identified. So you're not reading the statistic correctly. So
no. 83% were identified as civilians by the IDF, according to Israeli papers. Everyone check that out.
Yeah, everyone can Google it.
You have no argument because the truth is on my side, and I know that's so difficult. So stop embarrassing yourself.
Well, Ana, let me ask you though. Ana, let me ask Ana this. No, hang on. Let me ask Ana this question. Was it unwise of Miss Rachel to be so outspoken about this? Not because she's not entitled to, or it's not an incredibly important issue, but the fact she is a children's entertainer with a huge, huge audience. Was it unwise of her to get overtly political like this?
The days of Zionists bullying Americans into silence is over. Put that in your pipe and
that's a different question, though.
I'd like to read a quote.
Oh, that was great.
I'd like to read a quote.
Yeah, the biggest bully on the
Miss
internet
Rachel,
is talking about bullying. Give me a break.
Miss Rachel is an American, God bless her. And as an American, she is afforded the freedom to speak out against injustice as she sees it. So do I think it's wise?
No.
Obviously, I think it's wise.
No one's
doubting
her right to. No one's doubting her right to say it.
Yes.
But it's whether it's
answered your question. I think it's wise because they're going to call everyone an anti-Semite.
What would you say
as long as you're not bowing down to the government of Israel? They're going to call you an anti-Semite.
Right.
They don't even care about the value of Jewish lives here in the United States.
Okay, but Ana,
if those Jewish individuals are critical of Israel,
Ana,
it's all about Israel. Right. This is about an ideology, not about an identity, a heritage, a religion, or an ethnicity.
Okay, but if
make sure you realize that.
Okay. But if it was
weaponizing anti-Semitism for Israel's purposes is so disgusting.
But if it was a children's entertainer who was pro-Israeli,
oh, Ana would have.
What would you say? And be honest about this.
If she is showing the humanity of Israeli children, why would I have a problem with that?
Oh, come on.
Really?
And Piers, you've had me on this show multiple times. Yeah, I 100%.
But if you deem she only cared about Israeli kids
multiple times,
right? But if you deem
do you know
she
what
cared,
year it is? Piers, do you know what year it is? Okay, it's not October 7th, 2023. Since then, over 2.5 years later, tens of thousands of children have been slaughtered on the Palestinian side.
Yeah, but that's not my question.
So when they bring up the what about, everyone condemns what happened to Israeli civilians on October 7th. I have done that on this show.
Anna, you're answering a different...
I have done that on this show.
Yeah, I'm not questioning.
The two individuals on this panel right now do not care about Palestinian lives.
Well, I don't believe that's true.
That's false.
I don't believe that's true.
On so-called anti-Semitism.
I don't believe that's true. But my question was...
They don't care.
My question.
They don't care.
All right,
let me read you a quote.
Let me talk.
Let me read you a quote.
Let me talk.
This is from Tali Gottlieb. Tali Gottlieb says, "We have no hostages left. We no longer have to be precise, as if the IDF was ever precise in Gaza. We can attack without mercy, merciless. What do the two individuals on this panel have to say about that?
Well, I want you to...
genocidal rhetoric.
Okay, but I just want you to answer my question first, which is actually specifically about whether a children's entertainer with a massive reach, if they were promoting the pro-Israeli position on this war and not really mentioning the
genocide?
Palestinian side...
No, I would not think that's a good idea.
So you would not like that to happen?
If they're promoting genocide, I would not.
That's not what he asked.
No, if they were being supportive of Israel, but they weren't mentioning the Palestinian plight much, what would you say about that? Would you think it's appropriate for children's entertainment?
I would say that sounds a lot like American media.
No, but my point would be that
I
think you would be very critical if a children's entertainer was overtly pro-Israeli. That's the point. So is there a double standard here? On both sides, by the way. I've seen it on both sides. But is there a double standard in how you apply it to this kind of story where if it was the other way round, would you be so vehement in your defense of it? I suspect not, right? Today's show is sponsored by Oxford Natural, makers of the Optimum Day and Optimum Night all-natural supplements. Thousands of Brits and Americans are already taking them with incredible results. Optimum Day boosts your energy and supports weight loss throughout the day. Optimum Night helps you relax and get deep, refreshing sleep. They have countless success stories, including from some very familiar faces. England legend Michael Owen, who lost 40 pounds, AFTV's Robbie, who lost more than 100 pounds. To watch their full stories and many more, scan the QR code on your screen or visit oxfordnatural.com/Piers. And here's the best part. Use the code Piers and get 70% off your first order. Yes, 70% off with the code Piers.
Probably not, no, because it totally ignores the fact that since
but that's intellectually honest,
the vast majority of children who have been murdered
you can
are
disagree with her,
children
but
maimed.
But at least you've been honest that you would feel differently about it if it was the other way around. I mean, this is the point I would make, Hen, about this, and I think this applies to a lot of the stuff in this war. There is a lot of double standard going on, right? A lot of people are much more angry if it's their side in this kind of situation than if it's the other side. I remember Gail Gadot getting hammered, for being pro-Israeli in Hollywood. And whatever you think of her, I'm not a massive fan of hers, but she got a disproportionate amount of abuse for being pro-Israeli to people who've spoken out on the side of the Palestinians. So I do think there's a lot of hypocrisy flies around about the condemnation that goes on here. And I do wonder if Miss Rachel had been spouting pro-Israeli sentiment and people believed it was disproportionate to her pro-Palestinian, whether everyone currently racing to defend her would have defended her.
Right, of course not. And I think the problem is that Miss Rachel has, 18 million subscribers on her YouTube channel. It was the most successful Netflix opening show, her children's show. And I think Jewish parents are really afraid because they're showing their kids how to write the letter M, and on the side they're getting a video with Moattez Aziza who celebrates Hamas. That's very concerning. And to pretend that this is not the issue is just to, it's the same old tired talking points that it's the Israeli government, it's just they're trying to silence us. I don't think we're trying to silence Miss Rachel or anyone. We're raising real concerns.
Do you accept, Hen, as many people will be watching this saying, but Anna's got a point, right? The number of Palestinian kids that have been killed is exponentially higher than any number of Israeli children who've been killed in this war.
Absolutely.
By a multiple of tens of thousands, right?
Yeah. I'm just not going to count bodies. For me, every child that is killed is horrible. And yes, I fully condemn the fact that Palestinian children were killed in Gaza and there's still conflict going on. And I hope with all my heart that there will be a different government, that the Israeli government would be replaced, and that we will have a better future for both Israelis and Palestinian children. And I fully agree that there's double standards and hypocrisy on both sides. And I think people that are just pulling us to the sides and to the extreme, like Anna and others, are not helping us. Israelis and Palestinians deserve peace and coexistence and humanity. That's
all right. Well, let me bring in another guest. Stop Antisemitism put Guy Christensen, a pro-Palestinian TikTok influencer, on the list too, because he openly endorsed and glorified the murder of 2 Israeli embassy employees in a Washington, D.C. shooting. So the timeline of that was in May this year. A gunman named Elias Rodriguez murdered 2 employees of the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C., reportedly chanted "Free, Free Palestine." Now, you didn't want to appear as part of the panel, Guy Christensen, so we'll get their reaction after I've spoken to you. But it's very hard to not conclude that you were anti-Semitic. I mean, you were actively supporting an attack on 2 innocent people in Washington, D.C.
Sorry, how is that anti-Semitic? Elias Rodriguez was a natural reaction to genocide.
Well, no, you're actively supporting somebody cold-bloodedly murdering 2 civilians.
They're not civilians. They work for the state of Israel.
Well, they are civilians. They're not in the military.
They work for the state of Israel and they advance the Zionist project on behalf of the state. I think that's criminal.
So any diplomat anywhere in the world is fair game for you?
I mean, it's fair game for Israel.
Right. So, but that's anti-Semitism, isn't it? You're targeting them because they're Israeli diplomats.
No, they're not. That is not the same as being Jewish. In fact, I think neither were Jewish. One of them was Christian, and the other, I believe, was atheist, and they did work for the state of Israel. So I stand by what I said. I do not condemn that. But Piers, I hope you know that we have a. Do you know what the ACLU is? I hope you do.
The what?
The ACLU.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, of course. We have a case going on suing over the fallout from this, because I was being smeared as violent, inciting violence, celebrating this murder, none of which is true, and we're going to win this case. And
well, I think you. Well, I mean, look, I don't want to preempt your case, but when you say when you say this murderer was not a terrorist, he's a resistance fighter, and when you restate your belief that the shooting is being used to weaponize violence against Palestinians, but we will meet it with our own greater resistance and escalation. Clearly, people will see that as a direct threat against other civilians.
Why do you think resistance happens?
And it's not resistance, it's terrorism. When you cold-bloodedly murder people in the street in DC as a response to a war that's going on in Gaza, that is terrorism.
It's reaction to the genocide. He couldn't bear it anymore.
No, it's just cold-blooded murder. That's what it is.
It's murder. I agree with that.
You agree it's murder?
I never encourage anyone. I agree it's murder.
Okay,
obviously.
so then he's a terrorist then, right?
No, he's not a terrorist.
What is he? He's a murderer.
Reacting to the genocide. Yeah, sure, he's a murderer.
And he's murdering.
But I'm not going to condemn him.
Do you accept he was murdering for? Do you accept he was murdering for?
He couldn't bear watching torn apart Palestinian children.
Sorry, wait a minute. Do you accept that he was murdering for political reasons?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, then that's a terrorist. That's literally the definition of a terrorist. You don't even know what terrorism is, do you? Well, Guy, you do. I'm sorry, and it's not funny. With all due respect, you obviously have no idea what the word terrorism means. That is literally the definition.
The word terrorism means
when you murder
nowadays.
somebody for political motivation.
That. Just like the word antisemite means nothing when they give it to someone like Miss Rachel.
You've literally just called him a terrorist, having denied he was a terrorist. Tool. Right, you've literally just said. Sorry, Guy, with respect, let me speak. Let me speak. Just to be clear, when I said to you, did he murder these people? You said yes. And when I said, did he do it for political reasons? You said yes. That is the definition of terrorism. And yet your response at the time was he's not a terrorist, he's a resistance fighter. And I put it to you, you have now admitted he's a terrorist.
No, he's a resistance fighter.
Yeah,
it's very clear.
Resistance fighters are not terrorists.
The Palestinian resistance is not terrorists. They're resistance fighters.
But he murdered for political reasons. He's a terrorist, by your own definition.
I mean, October 7th happened for political reasons. I don't understand what this gotcha is. It's not really a gotcha. Terrorist,
it's not a gotcha. I just don't think you know what a terrorist is. So when you say he wasn't a terrorist, actually, literally, he was a terrorist. He was waging terror by murdering people for political reasons. That is terrorism. You don't know that, do you?
No, it's a reaction to genocide. And I condemn the genocide.
That's not what you said in your answer.
We need to get rid of the genocide, or else we're going to see more attacks like this.
People are going to watch this back and go, hang on a second. You said he wasn't a terrorist, but he murdered 2 diplomats.
Can't stand it any longer. So of course things like this are going to happen. We must end the genocide, so we end all of the violence that comes with it.
Right.
You know, this genocide is poison on the world.
So now you've established he committed an act of terrorism. Do you condemn it?
No, I do not condemn it. I stand by.
So you support terrorism? What's funny about that?
Because that's not what I said.
You've supported somebody who murdered people by your own admission for political reasons, by your own admission, who committed an act of terrorism. Literally, that is what terrorism is.
I did not think it was useful to condemn him because it's a reaction to the genocide.
So you don't condemn terrorists?
I don't. What this is a gotcha. I don't condemn.
It's not a gotcha. You're gotchaing yourself.
Resistance. I don't condemn.
You've literally admitted he murdered people for political reasons. That is a terrorist, and so you support terrorism.
Resistance fighter. He's a resistance fighter.
But you admitted he's a terrorist.
I didn't admit he's a terrorist, Piers. Can we move on?
If somebody
What's this?
murders someone for political reasons, they are a terrorist. Do you not know that?
He's a resistance fighter, Elias Rodriguez.
But he murdered people for political reasons. That's what you told me.
Yeah, I believe he murdered them for political reasons.
So he's a terrorist.
No, he's not a terrorist.
You're very
Piers.
confused, aren't you, Guy?
This word? No, I'm not confused.
You are.
Piers,
You're very confused because you don't seem to understand what a terrorist is. So it's not surprising that you're confused about whether you should condemn it or not.
Do you believe the Palestinian resistance fighters are terrorists? All of them. Piers.
What was that? Sorry.
Do you believe the Palestinian resistance fighters are all terrorists, Piers?
I think all the ones that invaded Israel October the 7th were terrorists. Yeah.
Okay, so you cannot resist the occupation, the
You can't commit
domination, the
acts of
genocide,
terrorism.
and apartheid.
Terrorism is terrorism wherever it happens, whatever the reason, it's terrorism. They
Okay,
3,000
terrorism is nothing.
3,000
Just
Hamas
like the word
terrorists
antisemite.
invaded Israel and committed mass murder. It was an act of grotesque terrorism. Anyone who says differently is defending terrorism.
Piers, most of the people they murdered were Israeli war criminals, IDF soldiers.
Actually, most of them were civilians, innocent people. And they
That's not
kidnapped.
true.
They kidnapped a baby. They kidnapped Holocaust survivors. It was disgusting and an act of
How many
brutal
do you
terrorism.
condemn the
And
thousands
your
of
attempt
Palestinian
to
hostages Israel holds
justify
right
it
now?
and defend it is actually making you
Do you
complicit in the
condemn?
terrorism.
Do you condemn Israel for holding thousands of Palestinian hostages right now?
I've condemned
Americans?
Israel for many things in this war. Yes, I'm happy
Do you
to
condemn the
condemn.
genocide?
I'm
I'm
happy
not
to
sure if
condemn
you
both
pulled it out
sides.
yet.
What I find I'm really struggling with is a lot of people have ideological views they spew out, thinking they know something about
It's
the
just a
situation.
humanity versus evil. That's
yeah,
what this is about.
I know, but
It's
then on
not
the other hand,
ideological.
you think it's fine to murder innocent people in the street in DC for political reasons, which is an act of terrorism. You think that's fine.
Piers, I don't.
So don't
Piers, I
preach to me.
encourage
Don't
it.
preach
I
with all
wouldn't
due
want it to
respect.
happen.
Do not preach to me
Piers,
about
listen.
humanity when you have zero humanity about the
That's not
victims
true
of
at
that
all.
terrorist attack.
I can't believe you would ever say that.
Well,
Piers,
your humanity is
I
only
do
one.
not encourage that.
Your
and I don't want it
humanity
to
is
happen,
one-sided.
As I said.
Yeah.
In fact, I think it was, contrary to the movement. As you understand, I was worried about it sparking or being used to justify a crackdown. So why would I encourage it or want it
You
to happen? How
literally
dare you say
said
that
we
to
will
me?
meet it with our own greater resistance and escalation.
Do you know what I advocate for on my platform?
I know what you're advocating for on my platform.
So you don't.
You're
answer is
defending
you don't.
political murder, which is terrorism. Literally, that's what you're doing. You just don't realize it.
I know. I just didn't condemn it. That's all, Piers. That's a reaction to
So you
genocide.
don't condemn
Simple as that,
terrorism.
and I stand
Just
with
to,
what
one
I
last
said.
time, to be clear,
I don't
you
condemn,
accept,
and I will never.
you accept it
ever
was
condemn
politically
the
motivated
Palestinian
murder,
resistance.
but
How
you don't
dare
condemn
you say
it.
that 2 years into this genocide? This is disgusting.
Okay, but just to be clear, one last chance I'll give you.
I don't need another chance. I'm not going to
You've
condemn
admitted it was
resistance.
politically motivated murder, which is terrorism. Do you condemn it?
I do not condemn it.
Okay. Guy Christensen, thank you very much. Let's go back to the panel. Well, I don't think he showered himself in glory there, did he, Jake Donnelly? Because he seemed to have no concept of what terrorism is. He literally admitted the guy had committed an act of terrorism, politically motivated murder, but wouldn't condemn it because he doesn't think that's terrorism.
If anybody on my side performed that poorly, I would ask them to get off social media, never be a voice for my side ever again. And I think it's actually phenomenally hilarious that the guy committed, honestly, career suicide just now because he did his own fake death hoax when he was back in high school. So you know what? It's the second time.
You know,
that Guy
well, let me bring Anna
has
in. Look,
destroyed
Anna,
himself.
the thing is, I thought that was pathetic, that interview. This is a guy who doesn't even really understand what the word terrorism means. So, all right, he's what he is. But I can understand why somebody like him would be on that list after that interview. I don't understand why you are. I've never heard you be, to my mind, anti-Semitic. I don't think Miss Rachel is anti-Semitic. I think she was probably ill-advised to platform Motaz Azaza. I can accept that criticism of her, but her statement seems pretty unequivocal to me. You know, my view is anti-Semites don't hide it. They're quite happy to be anti-Semitic.
They
They're
don't.
quite happy.
They're
quite happy to say they hate Jewish people, right? I mean, it's a bit like all these things. It's like proper racists don't hide it. They're quite happy to say they hate people because of their skin color. Proper homophobes don't hide. So this is why I hate these tags being applied to people when they're making legitimate criticism of governments or institutions or whatever. There's a world of difference. And if someone says emphatically, I'm not anti-Semitic, I have no problem with Jewish people, then I don't know why we wouldn't believe them, unless they've said things to the contrary.
Well, Piers, let me give you an analogy, because I think this will help you kind of understand my worldview and how I grew up, how I was raised. So I'm Armenian, at least my heritage is. Both my parents are Armenian. And growing up, of course, we spoke about the Armenian genocide. And I've heard all of the stories. I know what happened to my ancestors in the Armenian genocide. And when I was in 5th grade, for the first time in my life, I met the first Turkish person, a Turkish student by the name of Tanya, who came to America and was one of my classmates. Because I knew about what happened to Armenians in the genocide, I started bullying her. And I got sent home. And my parents, they're a little old school, so corporal punishment is not frowned upon. But my parents basically told me, they're like, what you did is disgusting. Hating someone simply because they're Turkish is wrong. And what you have to do is look at the system, the government, the entities that carried it out. You can't blame it on the entire Turkish population. This is just a little girl, and what you did is wrong and hateful. In fact, you're lowering yourself to the same type of thinking that the genociders had engaged in. And I kept that lesson with me throughout my entire life. So when I had an opportunity to work at the Young Turks, and I knew that even Cenk Uygur, who I love and respect, did not acknowledge the Armenian genocide, I had a decision to make. Do I hate this man and just write him off? Or do I engage in conversation? And throughout the years, through the debates we had, he absolutely changed his mind, realized he was wrong, now acknowledges the Armenian genocide. But the point that I'm trying to make with that is you have to judge people as individuals. If you don't do that, then you are guilty of the same hate, the same racism, the same Islamophobia that the current Israeli government is engaging in. And so I refuse to let people win and turn me into a hateful, disgusting bigot. That is not who I am. I know who I am in my heart. And I'm always going to speak out against injustice, including the injustice of 2 embassy workers getting shot down in cold blood.
Right.
No one should refer to that as freedom fighting, period.
That is terrorism, and I think he admitted it without even realising he admitted it. Some people on this list, Stu Peters, for example, in January 2024, said the gas chambers, the crematorium so often discussed, they were destroyed at the end of World War II if they were ever there in the first place, and questioned the official death toll of the Holocaust. That is anti-Semitism. When you deny the Holocaust, when you try and suggest that these gas chambers and crematoriums may never have been there in the first place, you are genuinely, in my opinion, anti-Semitic and thoroughly deserve to be on that list. But the other names on there, I think, devalue the credibility of this list, and that's just the people I know about. Thank you all very much for the debate. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Piers.
Piers Morgan Uncensored is proudly independent. The only boss around here is me. If you enjoy our show, we ask for only one simple thing. Hit subscribe on YouTube and follow Piers Morgan Uncensored on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And in return, we will continue our mission to inform, irritate and entertain. And we'll do it all for free. Independent, uncensored media has never been more critical, and we couldn't do it without you.